Ever feel like you're doing all the right things and still wondering why your body feels off? You eat well, you train hard, your labs say you're fine, but deep down you know something's slipping. You're not alone and you're not crazy. I'm Daniel Rasmussen, founder of Echelon Center for Longevity, and I've spent 2 decades helping high performers like you to reverse aging, reignite vitality, and finally get answers. On Unbreakable Vitality, we go upstream. We talk peptides, stem cells, precision diagnostic testing, reversing the age of your arteries, all the innovative science-based tools to take back your health span so that your next decades are your best yet. Because aging is real, but decline is optional.
Disclaimer. This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only and should not be considered medical advice. The topics we discuss often involve emerging research, longevity medicine, peptides, nutrition, and health optimization strategies. Nothing in this episode should be interpreted as a recommendation, diagnosis, or treatment plan for any individual. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making changes to your medications, supplements, diet, exercise program, or medical care.
Welcome back to Unbreakable Vitality. I want to begin today's episode with a question. Have you ever had one of those days where you barely ate anything, yet somehow you felt completely exhausted? Now think about the opposite. Have you ever been on vacation? Maybe you ate more than usual. You weren't counting calories. You probably enjoyed dessert, maybe even 2, yet somehow you had energy all day. You walked more, you laughed more, you stayed up later, and somehow you didn't feel exhausted. How is this possible? Because if calories equal energy, shouldn't eating fewer calories automatically give us less energy? And eating more calories automatically give us more? Obviously, that's not how the human body works. And understanding why may completely change the way you think about your metabolism. Because one of the biggest misconceptions in modern health is the belief that calories and energy are the same thing. And they're not even close. And that misunderstanding has caused millions of people to chase the wrong solutions for decades. You know, one of the most common frustrations I hear in the clinic sounds something like this. Doc, I'm eating less than I ever have, but I feel exhausted. Or I'm exercising every day, but somehow my energy just keeps getting worse. Eventually, people begin blaming themselves. My metabolism must be broken. I guess I'm just getting older. I don't have the energy I used to. But here's the interesting part. Most people don't actually have a calorie problem. They have an energy production problem. And those are two completely different physiological conversations. Let's simplify this a little bit. Imagine I handed you a stack of firewood. Would you call that heat? No, not really. It's potential heat. The firewood contains stored energy, but until you place it into a fireplace and ignite it, you don't actually have warmth. Food works the same way. Calories are stored chemical energy. They're potential energy. Now, your cells have to convert that stored energy into something usable. The usable form of energy is called ATP. So think of ATP as your body's energy currency. Every heartbeat, every muscle contraction, every nerve impulse, every thought in your brain, every breath requires it. Without ATP, nothing happens. And so the real question is not how many calories am I eating? The better question is how efficiently is my body converting those calories into usable energy? Now we're asking the right question. This is where mitochondrial becomes the stars of today's episode. You've probably heard of them. I've spoken of them before, described as the powerhouse of the cell. That phrase has become almost cliche, but it's actually true. Your mitochondria are tiny energy producing factories inside nearly every cell of your body. And their job is to take nutrients in, glucose, fatty acids, and even certain amino acids, and then convert them into ATP. Healthy mitochondria perform that process remarkably efficiently. Less healthy mitochondria don't. So when mitochondrial function begins to decline, you don't necessarily run out of calories, you run out of usable energy. And that's why someone can have excess body fat, plenty of stored calories, yet still feel exhausted. That surprises a lot of people because we've been taught that body fat equals stored energy, which is true, but stored energy isn't the same as accessible energy. Imagine having $1 million locked inside a bank vault, but forgetting the combination. Technically you are wealthy. Practically, you can't buy much. That's how many people experience metabolic dysfunction. The energy exists, their cells simply aren't accessing it efficiently. So now let's talk about why this happens, because healthy mitochondria are remarkably adaptable. They respond to movement, they respond to exercise, they respond to muscle contraction, to nutrient availability, they respond to sleep. They even respond to sunlight through circadian biology, but they also respond to chronic stress and inflammation and insulin resistance and poor sleep and physical inactivity. And over time, those signals begin to change how efficiently our cells produce that ATP energy. This is why aging often feels like an energy crisis, not necessarily because you're eating differently, but because the machinery responsible for producing energy isn't functioning the way it once did. So this brings us to one of the reasons researchers became fascinated by compounds like SLU PP332. Instead of asking, how do we reduce appetite or how do we burn more calories, researchers have started asking something much more interesting. How do we improve the way cells generate energy in the first place? And this peptide, SLU PP332, activates a family of receptors called estrogen-related receptors, or ERRs. Despite the name, these are not estrogen receptors. They're master regulators involved in mitochondrial function, oxidative metabolism, and endurance-related physiology. In preclinical research, activating these pathways appeared to increase the mitochondrial activity. It also improved oxidative metabolism and endurance capacity. It's pretty exciting. It's like exercise in a peptide, in a vial, because instead of forcing the body to burn more calories, the idea is to help cells become better at producing energy. Notice how different that conversation is. It's not about forcing metabolism. It's about improving metabolic quality. And that's important that we stay scientifically grounded. Most of the work involving this peptide has been conducted in laboratory and animal models. Human clinical trials are still needed, but so the mechanisms are fascinating. The future is promising. We're not at the point where we can make broad clinical claims, but that's an important distinction, one that often gets lost on social media and the influencers out there. So what actually improves mitochondrial health today? Fortunately, many of the answers are surprisingly simple. Resistance training, zone 2 cardiovascular exercise, walking, sleep, protein intake, managing inflammation, improving insulin sensitivity, maintaining your healthy muscle mass. These are still the foundation because your body responds to repeated signals, not isolated events. So one great workout doesn't transform the mitochondria. Hundreds of consistent workouts do. One night of great sleep doesn't fix metabolism. Years of quality recovery help reshape it. And this is why I often tell patients longevity isn't built through intensity, it's built through consistency. So let's pause for today's research spotlight. I want to highlight some cool things in the that are emerging across longevity science, and that is regarding mitochondrial dysfunction appears in almost every single chronic disease: type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, neurodegenerative disorders, and even age-related muscle loss. Researchers are increasingly viewing mitochondrial health not as a side effect of healthy aging, but one of its central drivers. That's why compounds targeting mitochondria signals are receiving so much attention, but not because they're miracle drugs, but because they eventually may become tools that can help restore healthier cell function alongside lifestyle interventions. Okay, so now for today's myth of the week. Burning more calories automatically means having more energy. False. Nope, not true. So you probably experienced this yourself. Anyone who's run a marathon knows this. They burn thousands of calories and they're absolutely exhausted afterward. But burning energy isn't the goal. Producing energy efficiently is, and that's a completely different biological process. Here's what we know. Healthy mitochondria matter. Muscle matters. Exercise matters, sleep matters, inflammation levels in your body matters, and how much fat in your visceral organs matters. And maintaining metabolic flexibility appears to be one of the hallmarks of healthy aging as well. So what we don't know is whether emerging compounds like SLU, PP332 will produce the same long-term outcomes in humans that we're seeing in preclinical models. And that's why responsible clinicians stay curious while remaining appropriately cautious, since science should inspire optimism, but not overconfidence. If I hope you remember one thing from today's episode, it is this. Stop thinking about your body as a calorie burning machine. Start thinking of it as an energy producing system. And so what does that mean? When your cells become healthier, everything else becomes easier. The recovery after a workout, your body composition changes, your exercise gets better, mental clarity gets better. Then that translates into longevity. Your body isn't simply trying to burn calories, it's trying to produce a life force in your body. And that's a much more inspiring way to think about it and your health. Okay, so if today's episode made you realize that fatigue isn't always about eating more or eating less, but about understanding how your metabolism is actually functioning, that's exactly why we created our complimentary Healthspan assessment. Before recommending peptides, before discussing supplements, longevity protocol, we first work to understand why your body is producing the results it's producing, and we'll evaluate your health history, body composition, advanced biomarkers, recovery capacity, your metabolic health. And then we put all that together and build a strategy based on your physiology, not internet trends. If you'd like to begin that conversation, just go to agelessfutureseattle.com. That's agelessfutureseattle.com and use the contact form to schedule your complimentary Healthspan assessment. Our team would be delighted and honored to help you build a personalized roadmap toward a better health and long-term vitality. And remember, health isn't something that you chase. It's something you build strategically. And I'll see you next time.
If you're feeling like your energy, your edge, or your clarity just isn't what it used to be, you're not alone. But you're also not stuck. Every week on Unbreakable Vitality, we explore real strategies to reverse aging, reclaim vitality, and rewrite what's possible. If today's episode gave you even one insight, pass it on. Then go take the free vascular age quiz at echelon-longevity.com/quiz to see how your body's aging. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us because your future isn't on autopilot. You are building it and you're just getting started.